It was a serene winter evening in rural Montana. Starlight glittered over a small log home on the outskirts of Belgrade, a town cradled by silent, snow-blanketed fields. Inside this cozy, cabin-like home, 32-year-old Ashley Van Hemert felt safe and content. She had just returned from a pleasant night out, an evening movie with her boyfriend, and the warmth of the house embraced her as she stepped in from the cold. As a precaution against the chill and any wandering wildlife, Ashley locked the front door behind her, a habitual comfort that made her feel secure. In the stillness that followed, she had no way of knowing that this simple act of locking the door would soon be tested in the most unimaginable way. Across the hall, Ashley's new housemate, Lauren DeWise, was winding down for the night. 35 years old and recently separated from her husband, Lauren had moved into the home only weeks earlier, hoping for a fresh start. By day, Lauren was a kind-hearted bank manager, gentle and optimistic, despite the upheaval in her life. She often spoke of the future with hope. She was rebuilding her life, one step at a time, cherishing quiet nights like this in the tranquil Montana countryside. The cabin, lovingly nicknamed the Girls' Sanctuary by their mutual friend and homeowner Audria, offered both women a refuge of peace and friendship. As midnight approached, the household grew quiet. Ashley changed into comfortable sleepwear and gently checked on the home's simple comforts, turning down the thermostat, making sure the stove was off. All the little rituals that precede a good night's sleep. In her bedroom, she paused by the window and peeked outside. The world beyond was still and calm. Moonlight glistened on an untouched expanse of snow, and a faint whisper of wind stirred the pines at the property's edge. Far in the distance, a lone coyote's yip punctuated the silence, then faded. Ashley found the scene enchanting rather than eerie. This remote Montana home felt miles away from danger, insulated by nature and solitude. She took a moment to appreciate the beauty of the night. The stars seemed especially bright, the Milky Way a pale band across the sky. Down the hall, Lauren's door was slightly ajar, a soft golden glow from her bedside lamp spilling into the hallway. "Good night, Lauren," Ashley whispered. Lauren responded with a gentle, "Good night," her voice warm and reassuring. Both women could never have imagined anything would disturb the peace of their rural haven. For a few minutes, Ashley stood quietly in her doorway, listening. She could hear the faint ticking of the living room clock and the soft creaks of the settling house. These familiar sounds were comforting. With a last look at the peaceful night sky, Ashley turned off her light. Sliding under her cozy blankets, Ashley felt gratitude for the calm of her life at that moment. She thought of her large family, the oldest of 8 siblings, and how supportive they'd always been. Perhaps she said a brief prayer of thanks, a nightly habit rooted in her deep faith. "Thank you, Lord, for this day. Thank you for keeping us safe." In the quiet, she could hear Lauren doing the same in her own way, maybe flipping through a book or murmuring a prayer for her 4-year-old daughter, who was safely with family that night. The cabin's atmosphere was gentle and drowsy. A single beam of moonlight fell across Ashley's bed, illuminating motes of dust in the air. She closed her eyes, her body relaxing into the mattress, and allowed the stillness to lull her toward sleep. The only sounds were the soft hum of the furnace and the faint rustle of pine boughs outside. Each breath Ashley took grew slower and deeper. In the room down the hall, Lauren likely felt a similar peace, possibly journaling her thoughts or simply listening to the hush of the winter night. The world felt utterly secure, a bubble of warmth amid the frosty Montana wilderness. Neither woman could know that beyond the tree line, someone was out there, watching the cabin's lights go dark. In the distance, a figure stood against the tree shadows, steady breaths clouding in the cold air. As Ashley drifted off, the night continued in quiet perfection. In this first act of the story, all was well. Two friends sleeping in their rural home, the stars keeping silent vigil above. The stage was set with tranquility, an almost fragile stillness that would soon be broken. But for now, in the deep darkness before the storm, the only emotions in the house were those of contentment and drowsy innocence. Ashley slept, unaware of the danger edging closer, and the beautiful Montana night carried on outside, calm, cold, and indifferent to the events about to unfold. In the pre-dawn hours of January 7th, 2018, the cabin lay in darkness and silence. The clock had slipped past 1 a.m. Ashley and Lauren were both in the depths of slumber, their breaths slow and rhythmic. Outside, the wind had picked up ever so slightly, sending a hushed shiver through the pine branches. A few clouds drifted across the stars, and the temperature plummeted further. It was the kind of frigid night where the snow squeaks underfoot. Any movement outside would echo in the stillness. And indeed, there was movement outside. Crunching steps in the snow, advancing toward the cabin. Suddenly, a loud crack shattered the silence. The back door burst open, splintering as a heavy boot kicked it in. The sound was sharp and violent, like a tree limb snapping in an ice storm. Startled awake, Ashley's eyes flew open in the darkness. For a moment, she wasn't sure if she had dreamt that crash or if it was real. Her heart thudded in her chest as she lay very still, ears straining. From down the hall, she heard Lauren stir, perhaps a gasp of surprise escaping her. Within seconds, the wooden floorboards creaked under unfamiliar footsteps. Ashley's mind raced with confusion. Was someone in the house? In the span of a heartbeat, her cozy home transformed from a safe haven into an alien place full of threat. She pushed herself up on one elbow, still groggy and disoriented, and saw her bedroom door was still mostly shut. Through the narrow slit, she caught a distorted glimpse of movement in the hallway. A shadow passing in front of Lauren's doorway, accompanied by a beam of a flashlight cutting through the dark. Ashley's breath caught. This was no nightmare. An intruder was inside their home. Before Ashley could fully react, a voice, low and terse, broke the silence. It came from the direction of Lauren's room, but the words were unclear. Perhaps the intruder had confronted Lauren first. Ashley's pulse pounded in her ears. Instinctively, she swung her legs silently out of bed, feet touching the cold floor. She debated. Should she rush to Lauren's aid, or should she hide? Fear rooted her in place. It all was happening too fast. The only phone was in the living area, far beyond her reach now. Heart hammering, Ashley remembered the self-defense advice she'd heard once. Stay quiet. Avoid drawing attention. She quietly eased herself off the bed and crouched low, inching toward a dark corner beside her dresser. The plan, if one could call it that, was to remain hidden until she could understand what was happening. Perhaps the intruder would take what they wanted and leave, she hoped. Her mind flashed to the locked front door. How had this person gotten in? Then she recalled that terrible crack of wood. The back door. They kicked it in, she realized with a sinking feeling. From Lauren's room came a sudden commotion, a scuffle, and Lauren's voice raising in alarm. "Why are you here? What do you want?" she pleaded. Lauren's voice was edged with terror and confusion, but she was trying to stay calm, offering the intruder whatever he wanted. "Take anything," Ashley heard her say desperately. "Just please." The reply was a harsh command, hissed but unintelligible to Ashley's ears. In that instant, Ashley felt a surge of protective urgency. She could not leave her friend alone out there. Gathering courage, Ashley crept toward her door. But before she reached it, a deafening boom reverberated through the house. The muzzle flash lit the hallway for a split second. Gunfire. A second blast followed immediately, echoing like thunder in the small home. Ashley froze in terror, eyes wide. In those flashes of light, she had seen Lauren's silhouette in her bedroom doorway, and a taller, frizzy-headed figure in front of her with a gun raised. Now there was darkness and ringing silence. The gunshots left Ashley's ears buzzing. Her mind screamed to comprehend. Lauren has been shot. Panic welled up, threatening to overtake her, but before she could make another move, heavy footsteps turned and pounded down the short hallway, heading straight toward Ashley's room. In one terrible heartbeat, a figure filled her doorway. The intruder's outline was stark against the faint light from Lauren's room. He wore some kind of bulky jacket. In his hands glinted the shape of a firearm. Ashley had nowhere to go, nowhere to hide in time. The intruder's flashlight beam swept across her. The light was blinding. Ashley raised an arm reflexively, and she might have screamed, or perhaps her voice caught in her throat from sheer terror. She felt utterly defenseless, caught out in the open of her bedroom. There was a brief, searing moment when Ashley glimpsed the man's face in the glow, and a shocking realization struck her. She recognized him. This wasn't a random stranger. It was Lauren's estranged husband, a man who had caused her friend so much pain in the past. His features were contorted with rage and something like desperation. Ashley opened her mouth to plead, but before any sound escaped, there was a brilliant flash and an earth-shattering bang. Pain exploded through Ashley's body. It was a pain unlike anything she'd ever imagined, white-hot and overwhelming, ripping through her head and back in an instant. She stumbled backward, crumpling to the floor. Another flash, another deafening boom. She felt a second impact slam into her shoulder. The force of it spun her halfway around, and she collapsed onto the hardwood. Her head struck the floorboards, and suddenly the world tilted and blurred. Ashley lay on her side, gasping. She tried to move, tried to crawl away, but her limbs wouldn't obey. Everything was happening in awful, disjointed fragments. The flicker of the intruder's shadow as he loomed over her, the pungent smell of gunpowder burning her nose, the bitter taste of fear in her mouth. She felt warm wetness spreading through her hair and across her back. Am I dying? She wondered in a detached, hazy way. Somewhere in the house, there was a muffled clatter. Perhaps the intruder kicked over a piece of furniture or searched for something briefly. Ashley's fading mind caught random details. The sound of her own heartbeat thundering in her ears, the way her cheek pressed against the cool floor, and a single booted foot stepping past her toward the front door. She wanted to shout, to beg him for mercy or help, but her voice was gone. From her angle on the floor, Ashley's eyes trailed the intruder as he moved away. He walked with haste, disappearing from her view. The house had fallen into an eerie silence, broken only by Ashley's ragged, shallow breaths. After a few eternal seconds, she heard the back door creak. The same door that had been brutally kicked open, now being pulled shut again. Then, nothing. The intruder was gone into the night as swiftly as he had come. In the span of just a minute or two, the peaceful cabin had become a crime scene. The intruder had left without saying a word to Ashley. He had carried out what he came to do, an ambush-style attack, as prosecutors would later call it. In those cruel moments, Lauren had been fatally shot and Ashley gravely wounded. The quiet Montana refuge had been violated by deadly violence. For a long beat, Ashley could not, move. The darkness felt heavier than before, the cold from the open door now seeping into the house. A thin tendril of smoke from the gunshots hung in the air, its acrid smell mixing with the pine-scented cleaner Ashley used to mop the floors earlier that day. A mundane memory from a lifetime ago. Act 2 closes in silence. The break-in was over almost as soon as it began. The intruder had vanished into the winter night, leaving Ashley in a crumpled heap on her bedroom floor, and Lauren lying motionless in the hall. The only sign of the violence was the acrid gunpowder haze and the faint echo of those gunshots still ringing in Ashley's ears. Outside, the wind continued to blow, and the stars continued to shine, indifferent to the tragedy inside the little cabin. Darkness settled back into the cabin, thicker than before. In the aftermath of the break-in, an uncanny stillness took hold. Ashley lay where she had fallen, her body gravely injured. The cold floor pressed against her cheek. A pool of warmth was spreading from the back of her head, soaking into her hair. But in her shock and semi-conscious haze, she scarcely registered it as blood. All she knew was that she was terribly hurt, and that any movement sent waves of agony through her skull and back. So she remained as still as possible, hardly daring to breathe. Time lost all meaning. Minutes stretched out like hours in the darkness. Ashley's mind drifted in and out of awareness, hovering at the edge of unconsciousness. She felt herself trembling, whether from shock or the chill creeping in through the busted doorframe, she could not tell. The taste of copper was on her tongue, and every shallow breath was a struggle. In the silence, one thought crystallized in her mind. Is he still here? She did not know if the intruder might return, or if perhaps he was still lurking just outside. Summoning whatever faint thread of consciousness she could, Ashley forced herself to stay quiet. She remembered a fragment of advice: to play dead if you cannot escape an attack. Perhaps some survival instinct kicked in. She kept her eyes closed to slits and her body limp, even though a part of her wanted desperately to crawl to Lauren or seek help. Don't move. Not yet, she told herself, over and over, in a mental chant of self-preservation. Later, she would recall thinking, I can't move. Not yet. It was as if an inner voice was guiding her. Stay still. Any sound, any movement could bring the danger back. And so Ashley became as small and silent as possible on that floor, merging with the shadows. The only movement was the subtle rise and fall of her chest, and the occasional flutter of her eyelashes as she fought to remain semi-alert. Her survival had now become a waiting game, a quiet hiding in plain sight. She was hidden not by walls or furniture, but by darkness and the semblance of death. In the black void of those hours, Ashley's memories flickered. Images of her loved ones played in her mind's eye. Her mother's face full of concern, her siblings laughing around a summer bonfire, her boyfriend's warm smile earlier that evening. Were those to be her final recollections? She wondered if she was dying. Yet, amid the fear and pain, a calm resolve began to form in Ashley's heart, a delicate ember of determination. She didn't want to die. Not here. Not like this. Hold on, she willed herself. In the profound stillness, a gentle awareness came. She realized she was still conscious, still breathing. That meant there was hope, however faint. With each shallow breath, she focused on one goal: stay alive until help comes. If she could just hold on a little longer, maybe, just maybe, someone would find them. Audria, the homeowner, was due back in the morning. The thought of Audria arriving gave Ashley a pinpoint of light in the darkness. Help is coming. I just have to last a few more hours. The house was utterly silent now, except for occasional creaks as the wind pushed at the broken door. Snowflakes drifted in through the gap, melting on the floorboards. In the faint ambient glow from outside, Ashley could just make out the outline of Lauren's form lying near the top of the stairs down the hall. She wanted to call out to her friend, to assure her that she was not alone, but no sound would come. Whether from injury or instinct, her throat refused to voice a call. Ashley's tears pooled under her closed lids, warm against her cooling skin. Please, Lauren. Please be okay, she thought, sending out a prayer into the silent room. There was no reply, no movement, only the still shape of her dearest friend. Ashley's heart ached with the beginnings of grief, but she could not afford to lose herself to it now. Survival was her task. Morning must wait for daybreak. Outside, the wind moaned softly, as if nature itself lamented the violence that had unfolded. Inside, Ashley clung to consciousness with every scrap of strength. Hour after hour crept by. At one point, she slipped into a semi-dream. She saw herself as a child, running through a summer field on her family's farm, sunlight golden on her face. In that vision, she heard her mother's voice calling her name from far away, telling her to come home for supper. The image faded, and she awoke with a jolt, back to the cold, dark floor, the pain reminding her she was still alive. She wasn't sure how much time had passed. The darkness beyond her eyelids was just beginning to give way to a faint grayness. Through the broken door, the night sky was yielding to dawn. The first pale light of morning seeped into the cabin's interior, illuminating the wreckage of the living room and hallway. In that dim dawn light, the scene was bleak. Furniture upturned from a brief struggle, the back door ajar with snow drifting in, and delicate footprints of blood on the floor where Ashley had briefly stood. Later, investigators would document these signs. Boot prints in the snow leading to the splintered door, 9 spent shell casings scattered inside, and no sign of any stolen property. It was clear the intruder hadn't come for valuables at all. It was an attack, plain and simple, leaving behind a scene of senseless brutality. But Ashley did not know those details yet. All she knew was what she could see from her limited vantage point on the floor. The soft light revealed something else: steam. Ashley could see faint wisps of steam rising from her mouth every time she exhaled. The house had grown cold with the door open all night. The furnace was struggling against the influx of icy air. Ashley's fingers were numb, and a shiver coursed through her battered body. Strangely, that shiver made her hopeful. It meant her body was still fighting, still alive enough to feel the cold. As morning advanced, Ashley's awareness sharpened just a little. The pain was still immense, but perhaps dulled slightly by the cold or by shock. The bleeding from her head had slowed. In fact, one of the bullets had miraculously lodged itself in such a way that it plugged her bleeding artery, essentially saving her life, as doctors would later tell her. In the pure luck of that, Ashley would always see the hand of a guardian angel. At the time, of course, she did not know this. She only felt a stiffness in her neck and a pressure inside her head. But she was surviving. Minute by minute, breath by breath, she was surviving. The world outside gradually brightened. The night was over. A soft winter dawn painted the clouds in muted pink and lavender hues. Through a cracked window pane, Ashley could hear the distant caw of a magpie or raven and the far-off rumble of a truck engine on a distant road. Life outside was beginning its normal morning routine, utterly unaware of the two women lying inside this quiet house. Then, just as the sun's first rays peeked over the horizon, Ashley heard it. The crunch of tires on snow, turning onto the long driveway. Her heart fluttered. Someone was coming. A car door slammed shut, and a familiar voice called out from outside the front of the house. "Hello? Ashley? Lauren?" It was Audria, the homeowner, back from her trip. Her tone puzzled at the sight of the partially open back door hanging off broken hinges. Relief and anxiety warred within Ashley. She tried to call back, but what came out was barely a rasp. Inside her head, she was screaming, "I'm here! I need help!" But her body refused to cooperate. She could only manage a weak, croaking moan. Footsteps approached the threshold, then halted. Audria gasped in horror at the scene meeting her eyes. The door frame splintered, snow blown in across the entry, and just inside, Lauren's prone form on the floor. "Ah!" A piercing scream cut through the morning air as Audria comprehended the nightmare before her. Ashley heard Audria's scream and felt a swell of emotion, a mix of sorrow and solace. Help was finally here, but it was arriving in the tragic light of what had happened. Audria dashed to Lauren first, crying her name in anguish. Then, a moment later, Audria's footsteps hurried toward Ashley's room. Ashley felt a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Oh my God, Ashley!" Audria's voice was choked with tears. Ashley's heavy eyelids opened a crack. She saw Audria's pale, stricken face above her. With tremendous effort, Ashley moved her fingers, lightly touching Audria's hand, the faintest acknowledgement. A sob of relief and grief escaped Audria. She fumbled for her phone with shaking hands and ran from the house to call 911 from the neighbors, as cell reception was poor inside. In the minutes that followed, Ashley remained on the floor, but now she was not alone. A neighbor, alerted by Audria's cries, rushed in and knelt by Ashley, carefully draping a blanket over her. "Hold on, help is coming," he said, voice trembling yet soothing. Ashley's vision was blurry, but she felt an overwhelming sense of safety knowing someone was with her now. She had done it. She had survived the long night. The intruder was gone, and dawn had brought allies to her side. The act of hiding and enduring was over. The next act, escape and rescue, was about to begin. Ashley's next awareness was of soft light and muted beeps. She drifted upward through layers of heavy darkness, as if rising slowly from the bottom of a deep well. When her eyes finally fluttered open, she found herself in a hospital room bathed in gentle afternoon light. Days had passed in a blur of surgery and sedation. Now it was quiet and still, save for the rhythmic pulse of the heart monitor and the faint whoosh of machines. Ashley did not know it yet, but it was nearly a week after the attack. She had been in a coma, hovering between life and death, and had miraculously pulled through. Her body felt foreign to her, heavy, weak, and racked with pain even through the fog of medication. She tried to speak, to call out, but discovered a ventilator tube had been helping her breathe. Panic threatened to rise, but just then she noticed figures in the room. Blinking to clear her vision, Ashley realized she was not alone. At her bedside sat several of her family members, their faces weary but hopeful. Her mother was there, eyes red-rimmed from countless hours of vigil and prayer. A few of her siblings stood nearby, and her boyfriend hovered at the foot of the bed, hands clasped tightly as if in prayer. Upon seeing her eyes open, her mother let out a, "Ashley, honey, we're here," she said, voice quavering with emotion. Ashley tried to smile, but tears came instead, spilling down her cheeks. She couldn't talk or even lift her arms to hug them. The stroke and trauma had left her partially paralyzed on one side for now. But she wanted to communicate somehow the profound relief and love she felt in that moment. Summoning all her remaining strength, Ashley curled the fingers of her right hand into the shape of "I heart you," the sign for "I love you." She managed to lift her hand slightly, and her family saw it. A wave of joyful emotions swept through the room. "She's telling us she loves us," one of her sisters exclaimed, voice breaking. In that simple gesture, they knew Ashley's mind was still there, still herself. It felt like the greatest gift they could ever receive. Over the next hours and days, Ashley's condition stabilized. Doctors removed the breathing tube, and she gradually found her voice again. At first, but undeniably hers. She learned the full extent of what had happened, how she had been grievously wounded, how her friend Lauren had tragically not survived the attack. The news of Lauren's death hit Ashley hard. In the privacy of quiet nights at the hospital, she wept for her lost friend, grieving not with screams or rage, but into her pillow. She would later say that Lauren's kind spirit seemed to watch over her during those dark hours, giving her the courage to go on. Ashley's own survival bordered on the miraculous. Her doctors were astonished by her recovery. One surgeon explained that a fragment of a bullet had lodged in her carotid artery, effectively plugging the wound and preventing fatal blood loss, a phenomenon they had never seen before. They had never seen that before, her mother marveled. Even the doctor said it was like God put that fragment there to save her. Hearing these accounts, Ashley felt deeply that some higher purpose had kept her alive. "God is good, and I'm still here," she whispered to her family, her eyes shining with gratitude. Though her voice was weak, the conviction in it was strong. She truly believed the Lord had saved her life that night. The road to recovery was long and challenging. Ashley had suffered a stroke from her head injury during those first hours, and parts of the left side of her body were left paralyzed. Once stable, she was transferred to a renowned rehabilitation hospital. There, day by day, she began the arduous process of reclaiming her life. Initially, Even swallowing a sip of water or moving a toe required immense effort. Therapists taught her how to speak more clearly again, how to use her right side to compensate for the left, and eventually how to stand and walk with assistance. It took 8 months of intensive therapy, relearning to eat, to dress herself, to walk small distances with a cane. Progress came in tiny increments. The first wiggle of a toe, the first time she could sit up unassisted, the first halting steps across the therapy gym. Each milestone was a victory that Ashley and her family celebrated with tears of joy. Throughout it all, Ashley's spirit shone with a quiet resilience. Nurses and therapists noted her unfailing kindness and determination. On hard days, when frustration brought her to tears, Ashley would close her eyes and say a silent prayer. She found strength in her faith and in the love that surrounded her. Her family practically moved into the rehabilitation center to be by her side. They decorated her room with cheerful cards, uplifting Bible verses, and photos of Ashley doing the outdoor activities she loved: hiking, snowboarding, playing with her beloved husky Malamute dog, Bronson. These images became her motivation. "I'm going to get back to that," she would whisper to herself when no one was listening. And slowly, she did. As her body mended, so too did Ashley's perspective on life. Surviving such a harrowing ordeal had sharpened her sense of purpose. She realized she had been given a second chance that her friend Lauren had not. In quiet moments, Ashley felt Lauren's memory pushing her to live fully, not in fear or bitterness. Yes, there were nightmares sometimes, and lingering fears. A sudden loud knock or a flashlight's beam could send her heart racing with residual panic. But Ashley refused to let those moments define her. With the help of counselors, she learned calming techniques for the anxiety. Deep breathing, grounding herself in the present by focusing on simple things like the feel of her dog's fur or the sound of her niece's laughter. Little by little, the cabin night lost its power to control her emotions. It became a story she could tell rather than a wound that bled. Part of Ashley's healing journey involved confronting what had happened in a tangible way. The man who invaded the home, Lauren's estranged husband, had been arrested and charged thanks to swift police work and evidence gathered. Boot prints matched his, and even the discarded weapon was found in a nearby river. He was put on trial for homicide and attempted homicide. Ashley, still recovering, mustered the strength to attend portions of the court proceedings in a wheelchair. It was not easy to face the person who caused such destruction, but Ashley felt it was something she had to do. For herself, for Lauren, and for justice. In December 2019, nearly 2 years after the attack, a Montana jury found the intruder guilty on all counts. The judge delivered a sentence ensuring he would spend the rest of his life in prison for his heinous acts, effectively 220 years behind bars. When Ashley heard the sentence, she felt a weight lift. Justice had been served. The man who tried to kill her would never be free to hurt anyone again. Yet, remarkably, Ashley's heart was not filled with hatred or vengeful satisfaction. Instead, she felt a deep, solemn sorrow. For Lauren's life lost, for the family of the man who would suffer his absence, and even for the man himself, whose soul seemed lost to anger and evil. At the sentencing hearing, Ashley had the opportunity to address the court and the man who had nearly taken her life. With trembling hands, but she spoke words that hushed everyone in the courtroom. "I don't know why God fully chose to save my life yet," she said, gazing at the shackled figure of the defendant. but I do know I've gained a deeper understanding of people's hurt. You may have tried to kill me, but you do not have the final say on when someone's life is over." Her words hung in the air, powerful and imbued with truth. Even the man who shot her looked up, seemingly startled to hear such resolve and grace from the person he thought he had silenced. Ashley then did something even more extraordinary. She spoke of forgiveness. She had written a short poem during her rehab as a way to process her feelings, and now she shared part of it. "You left me there for dead. By the grace of God, I survived and lived to be a testimony. When people ask me what they should pray for, I say, pray for my body, your children, and your soul." In those lines, Ashley acknowledged the horror, but immediately shifted to grace and compassion. She was praying not only for her own continued healing, but for the well-being of the very family of the man who hurt her, and for the redemption of his soul. The courtroom was silent except for as those present were moved by her capacity to empathize and forgive. Finally, in a gesture that no one expected, Ashley held out a worn but cherished Bible, her own, and asked a bailiff to deliver it to the defendant. It was her gift to him. "I want you to have hope for your soul," she said softly. "If God can forgive me for my failings an unlimited number of times, then I can't withhold forgiveness from you." This was her message, echoing the principles of her faith. It was an extraordinary moment. Even the prosecuting attorney later remarked, "She is a miracle." The courage and compassion she displayed, getting up to confront him with forgiveness, is remarkable. Ashley's emotional resilience shone brighter than ever in that courtroom, inspiring everyone who heard her words. With the legal chapter closed, Ashley turned fully toward the future. Life slowly found a new normal. In early 2020, she moved back home to Bozeman. There was a joyful welcome as she walked, still with a slight limp, through the doorway of a new house, greeted by family and friends who celebrated her survival. In time, she returned to the snowy mountains she loved. Eventually, Ashley strapped on a snowboard again, gliding down gentle slopes with tears in her eyes, grateful simply because she could. Each day became a gift she learned not to rush past. She also found fulfillment working with a local homeschooling program, helping children learn and grow. Her gentle nature and hard-earned wisdom made her a patient and nurturing mentor. In her free time, she took long walks with Bronson, her dog, along familiar trails. The whispering pines and wide Montana skies that once bore witness to her darkest night now watched her heal, step by step. Of course, the memory of that winter night in 2018 never fully disappeared. Some evenings, when the wind rattles a door or the floor creaks unexpectedly, a brief flicker of fear still surfaces. But Ashley breathes through it, reminding herself that she is safe, that the danger has passed. If sleep ever feels distant, she makes a cup of chamomile tea and wraps herself in a soft blanket, sitting quietly on the porch beneath the night sky. The same stars that once shone during the worst moments now offer comfort. They are steady and enduring, much like the human spirit's ability to endure. Sometimes she speaks softly into the quiet, as if to Lauren, "We made it through. I'll live fully now." In those moments, she feels a sense of peace, as though her friend's presence lingers gently in the stillness. Ashley Van Hemmert's story is one of quiet resilience. She survived a horrific home invasion, shot multiple times and left for dead, through determination, endurance, and the will to keep breathing. But survival was only the beginning. In the aftermath, she chose healing over bitterness and hope over fear. She often says she does not know why she was spared, but she believes she is still here for a reason. By sharing her story, Ashley has found a deeper sense of calm. She knows that speaking about what she endured may help others facing their own dark nights. Her voice, steady and gentle, reminds them that even after profound trauma, it is possible to find peace again and to sleep again without fear. Emotional resilience, she learned, grows slowly, strengthened by patience and kindness toward oneself. Now, nearly a decade after that night, Ashley can stand outside on a cold winter evening and look up at the Montana sky without dread. She notices the simple joys, the crunch of snow beneath her boots, the warmth of laughter around a dinner table, the quiet comfort of her dog resting nearby. These moments, once ordinary, are now deeply meaningful. They remind her that life continued. Evil did not have the final word. As our gentle story comes to a close, imagine Ashley on one of those peaceful nights. Her home is quiet, the lights low. She steps outside briefly, wrapped in a knitted shawl. Her breath rises in the cold air as she gazes at the stars overhead. Then, releasing the day. In her heart, there is gratitude for survival, for healing, and for the days still unfolding. Ashley whispers a quiet prayer of thanks and turns back inside. The door closes with a gentle click, leaving the cold and the past behind. Inside waits warmth, rest, and a life reclaimed. In the darkness of that night, Ashley found her strength. In the light of each new day, she finds her peace. She is still here. And as she rests now, her breathing steady and calm, she knows the worst is over, and that dawn will always come again. This narration was based on the true survival story of Ashley Van Hemert, who lived through a home invasion shooting in Montana on January 6th to 7th, 2018. Her journey stands as a quiet testament to resilience and hope. Please remember to like and subscribe for more true stories of survival.